achieved.
There is light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not quite there yet as we prepare to predict UFC Fight Night 91. Before we get there, I quickly want to talk about the other events that went down during UFC Fight Week. As you can probably tell, my voice is a little bit off. I'm a little bit under the weather, and obviously the lack of sleep I've been getting lately trying to break all these fights down and get everything posted is taking its toll. Nonetheless, I've had a pretty decent run. Ultimately, UFC 200 did not go as planned. I went 8-4 at UFN 90, 8-1 at the Ultimate Fighter finale, and then a dismal 5-7 at UFC 200. But the Ultimate Fighter finale, nearly 300 units payout. So if you bet $10 a unit on with my bet pack picks, you would have got about $3,000 back. So you'd be certainly up. I had two major parlays on my UFN 90 that just missed out by a small margin. Both one leg missing, they would have paid out huge. But it's been a pretty good run. I'm hoping to finish strong here and cap off a whirlwind of fight predictions. I still got a lot of work ahead of me, but welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. As I said on this episode of the show, we're breaking into the upcoming UFC Fight Night 91 event, which will take place on July 13th. I'll be giving you 6 main card predictions for the fights that I feel will be on the main card. They haven't actually posted the order other than the main event and co-main event, but I will be giving you those breakdowns as well. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. The bet packs I spoke about earlier, $12, you can buy a bet pack and get in on the betting action. Also, fantasy breakdowns for DraftKings available. I do all the cards. I do every fight. I'm not one of these guys who's going to give you 2 picks and be like, here, bet this one and this one. Thanks for your $50. I don't do that. I give you everything. You take it for it, you will. I tell you what you can do, or you can do it, go about it your own direction and use the information how you want to. Follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. I'm also on Facebook. You can search me out there. And we have a lot of fights to get to. I've still got a lot of work to do. All the prelim predictions still that need to be broken down. Let's get to that first main card prediction. The first fight of the main card is in the UFC's flyweight division. It's the 12th ranked Louis Smolka, the Last Samurai. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. With a pretty impressive record at 10-1. Takes on the 15th ranked Ben 10 Nguyen with a pretty solid record in his own right, 15 wins and 5 defeats. I'm so nasal, it's driving me insane. Now, Nguyen, he's rolling. He's won 9 straight fights, including a debut knockout of Alveyvs, and he submitted Ryan Benoit in his last fight. He has 7 stoppages on his current streak, which is impressive for a flyweight. For Smolka, he debuted with a decision win over the aforementioned Alveyvs, followed up with a split decision loss against Chris Carriasso, former title challenger. He has now won 3 in a row, including stopping Richie Voss and submitting Paddy Holohan. This is a big fight for both men going forward, looking to crack that top 10. Some major physical differences in this fight. Smolka is 4 inches taller. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, and he is 3 years younger. Now, with Louis Smolka, he's a brown belt in judo, a background in karate as well. 3 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission, and he's 2-1 on the scorecards. For Ben Nguyen, he has 10 more fights overall, so a little bit of experience advantage. He also has 10 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. He's 2-0 in the scorecards. Now, some of his numbers from earlier in his career, he has been knocked out 4 times. He also has 1 submission loss. He has a black belt in Taekwondo and a BJJ brown belt. Now, with Nguyen, he is an aggressive striker. He can do damage at both distance and in close. Look for knees and elbows once he gets on the inside. He tends to run into his strikes a little bit, which can increase the impact, but it also opens him up to be taken down. He does have good head movement, and he'll throw some very hard low kicks. We saw against Oleinik, he opened up with some low kicks in that fight, and it showed that he's got faith in his counter wrestling ability against a guy who he knew was going to look to take him down, yet he still came out kicking. He throws a nice left hook, straight right combination. He hurt Benoit with a hard left uppercut, also dropped him with a straight left in that fight. It's pretty solid takedown defense, and he's pretty damn good in a scramble as well. Alp did manage to take him down a couple times, and Alveyvs is a pretty good wrestler in his own right. But Ben was able to, get in positions that were better for him, and eventually showed some good takedown defense. He landed a nice switch, out-scrambled Benoit when they hit the mat, eventually got to the rear naked choke position to put him away. Now with Louis Smolka's a very good grappler. Multiple submission attempts. He's a chain submission fighter. He just keeps attacking guys on the mat. He had 6 takedowns against Neil Seery, showed good grappling skills overall. He gave up 9 takedowns in his fight against Alveyvs, but he was able to counter into superior positions and really wore out his opponent based on his ability to just keep pushing on the mat. Good scrambler, and he's dangerous in transitions. He'll constantly look for submissions when he gets the opportunity. Now, again, when he fought Paddy Holohan had success putting him on the mat early, and again, he turned that fight in his favor by countering and working submissions and eventually tapped him out. Smolka carries a very steep steady pace, whether you're grappling with him or working on the mat. Grappling with him or striking. When you're striking, he lands 4.39 strikes landed per minute, so that's a pretty hefty pace. Gives that 3.65, so that's, gets hit a lot, but still he really pushes that pace. Uses a bit of a low stance when he's striking, which takes away some of those length advantages that he has. He throws a nice straight right and a right uppercut. We saw that hook kick, that sweet chin music style attack against Richie Vass that he knocked him out with. In that fight, he was probably behind in the scorecards. Because he got cracked with several big shots from the Aussie. He was hurt a couple of times. His nose was busted up. Spent some time on his back in that fight, and I think he had to pull out the stoppage late in that round to get the victory. Neil Seery also had some success landing some big shots as he came in. Stumbled Lewis early in that fight, but Smolka again turned that fight in his favor, and he was able to drag it into a grappling exchange. Smolka's only loss came against a fighter who was able to outwork him on the feet and minimize the grappling exchanges. That was Chris Carriasso, and it was a split decision. It was still a close fight. Ben Nguyen has very good counter wrestling. We've seen that. I think he should have a speed advantage here. He hits exceptionally hard. And Smolka, he doesn't use his reach well, and he's willing to take a shot to land a shot. That's something you do not want to do against Ben Nguyen. I think Nguyen's going to land some big combinations. He's going to punish Lewis every time he comes in, and my prediction is Ben Nguyen to defeat Lewis Smolka by knockout. We move up to the 170-pounders now as Australia's Kyle Noke, 22-8-1, takes on Japan's Keita Keitaro Nakamura with a record of 31 wins, 7 losses, 2 draws, and 1 no contest. Now, Noke is coming off an upset split decision loss to an opponent that took the fight on late notice. For Nakamura, he's coming off a loss against a very talented up-and-coming prospect in Tom Breeze, which ended his 5-fight winning streak. Physically, Noke is 2 inches taller. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, but he's also the older man by 4 years. And just to put this in perspective, these two individuals have 72 combined pro fights, so a lot of experience on both sides here. Now, with Nakamura, he's a technically sound grappler, background in both BJJ and Judo, 17 wins by submission, 15 coming by rear naked choke, including his upset win over Jiang Li, who we just saw win this past couple days ago. 6 wins by knockout, 8-5 in the scorecards, though, so not a great fight in when he goes the distance. For Noke, 8 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission, 6-5 on the scorecard, so again, same situation there. He has 1 loss by knockout and 2 losses by submission. For Nakamura, he is a grappler, but capable of striking. He's very aggressive on the feet. He will come forward with straight punches, and he's pretty durable. He's been hard to put away. Hasn't been put away a lot in his very long career. When he fought Lee, he had constant forward pressure early, dropped him with a short left hook. Also has a pretty good right hook. Countered Lee coming in, who he likes to come forward as well. Throw some nice kicks. A lot of his strikes, though, come in singles, which can be an issue if you're spent too long in the feet because you're not setting stuff up. Doesn't have the fastest hands, and they get slower as the fight goes. Tends to leave his head in the same place. And a lot of the strikes we see that, especially Lee was throwing in the second round, were getting through his guard, and Breeze had similar success as well. Nakamura got outworked in round 2 of his re-debut, cracked with some jabs to the face and body, was really waiting his opponent and getting the second best of the exchanges. When he closes the distance, that's when he's dangerous. He's very strong in the clinch against Tom Breeze, locked up a body lock, was able to lift Breeze off his feet, had a couple of nice trip takedowns from that position. When he shot from the outside, not nearly as effective, but was able to, basically drag Breeze into a grappling exchange and get to a superior position, look for that signature rear naked choke. He has pretty solid top control, needs to be more offensive with his strikes, though, once he gets on top and hold the position. And Breeze had some success attacking with submissions and getting out of some tough spots, and that fight ultimately got the win. For Kyle Noke, we've seen some gaps in his defensive wrestling. Patrick O'Tay took him down 3 times, had some prolonged top control. Jonathan Webb had a couple of takedowns in that fight. Noke had success against scrambling to a better position, but it's something that we see that Noke can cost Noke in close fights. When you look at the Alex Morano fight, Noke showed that he's more than willing to grapple, though. He took Morano's back. It was kind of a sloppy mess. He took Morano's back. He slipped off. Morano took his back. He slipped off. And eventually, Noke wound up on top. He had some trouble creating separation against Morano in that fight. And whenever Webb attacked on the mat, the transition game was really an issue for Noke to deal with. When Noke keeps the fight standing, he has pretty good power in his hands, 8 wins by knockout. His striking exchange rate, pretty solid, 3.45 strikes landed per minute compared to 1.96 strikes absorbed. He landed some very good strikes early against Morano. Probably, it looked like he hurt him or stumbled, caught him off guard at something. He has a very strong right hand. His kicking game is exceptional. Lots of kicks against Webb early. He stopped Peter Sabato with a thudding front kick. He likes to use a push kick to the midsection to basically stop his opponent's forward motion, to shut them down from coming in. He broke his nose was broken against Alex Morano, which probably hurt his performance, especially later in that match. I mean, again, having that late opponent change can really throw a fighter off. Neither man has a great record in decisions, But you look at Nakamura, and the big thing I'm looking at here, he tends to slow down in fights. And this is his first fight outside of the U.S. and first fight in the U.S. since 2008. He pretty much has fought overseas in Japan, his home country of Japan, with the exception of his London, England fight. And there's always the issue of the east to west travel and how that impacts a fighter. On the other side, you have Kyle Noke, who trains in Albuquerque, New Mexico at altitude, should be well conditioned, should be better prepared for this matchup if this is a long, grueling back and forth battle. Nakamura could work his takedowns, possibly set up submission or control some ground time, but I think Noke's going to be busier on the feet. He's going to land the more impactful strikes. He's going to use his size in the clinch and that leverage he can establish to fend off takedown attempts. I think it's a close fight, but my prediction is Kyle Noke to defeat Keita Nakamura by decision. Our next fight takes place in the UFC's heavyweight division, featuring a couple of European heavies, as the returning 15th ranked Alexey Oleinik, the boa constrictor, with an impressive record of 50 wins, 9 losses, and 1 draw, takes on Poland's Daniel Omielanczuk, with a current record of 18 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, and 1 no contest. Now, for Oleinik, he's returning after a 20-month layoff. He's returning after knee surgery. This is his 3rd UFC fight. For Omielanczuk, he's 3-2 inside the octagon. He is coming off back-to-back wins, but his last performance was incredibly lackluster, where both fighters, his opponent was debuting, tired out, looked like garbage. They actually didn't go the distance. I think it ended on minute 36 in the 3rd round, which was probably a saving grace, and went to a technical decision in that fight. Now, they both have a common opponent. So you have Anthony Hamilton. They both fought. Oleinik submitted him. Omielanczuk lost a grinding decision to Hamilton. So just give you some ideas where they're at here. For Oleinik, he is 2 inches taller, of a 6-inch reach advantage. Should be about 7 pounds for Omielanczuk in the weigh scales, depending on where they weigh in. Oleinik's not considered a big heavyweight, neither is Omielanczuk. The Polish fighter is 5 years younger, and he's fought 3 times since Alexey last competed in the UFC. For Oleinik, he is a master of sport in combat sports. He's also a multi-degree BJJ black belt, 5 wins by knockout, a staggering 41 wins by submission. Shocking. 4-3 in the scorecards. Now, his over a prolonged career at heavyweight, he's got a lot of stoppages. 4 losses by knockout. He's been submitted twice as well in his career. And when you look at his current run, he has 9 submission wins, 2 wins by TKO, 8 wins during his current winning streak have come in the first round. It's 11 fights he has won in a row right now, and he's known for having a very diverse grappling repertoire, cookbook, if you will. He's submitted both Mirko Cro Cop and Anthony Hamilton with the scarf hold, which is a very unorthodox submission that's hard to defend against if you're not looking for it, and he got them both. He's picked up the Ezekiel choke multiple times. He's got a wealth of submission tricks in his bag. Now, as I said, he's been knocked out 4 times. 4 of his last 5 losses actually have come by knockout, so certainly that seems to be a little bit of an area of vulnerability for him. And overall, he is 8-9 in fights where he hasn't been able to get a submission. So that tells you a little bit of where his forte is. For Omielanczuk, 3 wins by knockout, 9-0 fights ended by submission, 6-5 on the scorecards. He has never been finished. Now, for Oleinik, when he fought Hamilton, he jumped on a single leg, transitioned to a double leg, took him down, immediately hopped over into side control and set up that scarf hold, which was damn impressive, and got the tap. Hamilton seemed very bewildered. He kind of got hit with some shots earlier that hurt him. Similar situation with Mirko. He pushed into the clinch, changed levels for a takedown, he's a very aggressive guard passer once he gets down, and put him down and eventually caught him in the same hold. Very strong and close. He likes to really, kind of have that head fighting, control their head, and wing punches in close and wear guys out. But when he fought Jared Rosholt, he actually was getting pushed into the clinch and really having trouble there, and he looked a little bit tired at some points in that fight. He was getting cracked with some big shots, and obviously didn't go down because he ultimately won that fight, but it was still a position it wasn't looking like it was working too good for him against a fighter like that. On the feet, Oleinik showed some power, rocking Hamilton, coming forward with a nice straight right. He has big left-hand knockout power, which stopped Rosholt. He drew him into kind of a swinging, plodding mess and eventually finished him. He tends to paw with his left a lot and kind of corral fighters into his power right, leans forward when he throws. As a power from the right, uppercut, something you have to watch for in close again when you get his opponent ducking in. Now with Omielanczuk, when he fought Chris De La Rocha, he landed a very strong left hand early, right hook for the knockout. He has a nice straight counter right as well. Pretty good kicking game overall. Likes to throw head kicks. He'll throw some low kicks. Has a nice stepping knee to the body. He will swing a little bit wild, and he's not a very busy, active striker if he's not hunting for the knockout. He can be outworked. In this fight, though, he wants to avoid the clinch. In his last matchup, against Dano. It was a position he didn't like. He was getting beaten up in that position, pushed around, hit with some knees, giving up takedown attempts, and Dano, it really wore him out in that spot. He has had issues with his takedown defense overall. He was taken down by Rochelle with ease on multiple occasions. Anthony Hamilton, who's a so-so wrestler, took him down 3 times and really ground him out. He likes to use a headlock to fend off takedowns, and that can be effective, but once Rochelle got his hands on a single leg, boom, it was over. He was going down. I think the layoff in age for Oleinik is certainly concerning, but the style that Omielanczuk, his defensive issues certainly works with Alexey's style. The weaknesses kind of coupled together there. Oleinik, I think he'll wear him down in close, be the more active striker, swing some big shots. I eventually think he gets a takedown and works for that submission. Look for him to maybe hop over and go for that unorthodox scarf hold, because Omielanczuk tends to get stuck on his back and doesn't do a good job of getting back to his feet. Might not be a pretty fight if we go beyond the midway mark of round 2. My prediction is Alexey Oleinik to defeat Daniel Omielanczuk by submission. My voice seems to be failing, but we're going to persevere through here as we move to the middleweight divisions. Tim the Barbarian Boetsch, 18 wins and 10 losses, trudges on as he takes on Josh Samman with a current record of 12 wins and 4 defeats. Now, Boetsch has lost 3 in a row, all by stoppage, the last 2 by knockout. He has just 2 wins in his last 8 fights. And if you look at those fights, and I talk about this every time I talk about Tim Boetsch, a controversial win against CB Dalloway and a come from behind knockout against Thiago Tavares. During his current slump, 3 losses by knockout, 2 submission losses. He has not looked good overall. Samman, he is coming off a tough loss to Tandem McCrory, where he was submitted, which ended his 4-fight winning streak. Boetsch is actually cutting back down from light heavyweight, where he went up for a 1-fight experiment against Ed Herman and didn't fare too well. Samman, though, was 3 inches taller with a 5-inch reach advantage and is the younger man by 7 years. Boetsch overall, 8 wins by knockout, 5 by submission, 5-3 in the scorecards, 7 losses by finish, though. So those numbers are starting to pile up. For Samman, 7 wins by knockout, 4-2 in submissions, and 1-1 on the scorecards. For Josh, he's a very good athlete, lots of movement, should be the faster fighter, more momentum obviously based on his current success just with the recent setback. He has had some defensive grappling issues before. He was submitted by Kelvin Gastelum on the show. Tandem McCrory also submitted him. We saw Eddie Gordon take him down. Kevin Casey almost tapped him out as well. So certainly some gaps there. He is a BJJ brown belt. Pretty good scrambles, though, in the McCrory fight, which is a very draining and grueling fight. It was a back and forth. He was having a lot of success early on, holding top position, getting the better of the exchanges. He had some nice body lock takedowns. Did a good job of rolling with McCrory whenever he attacked. He eventually would lose position and got submitted, but it showed how capable he is on the ground. Tapping out Kyle Magalhaes by rear naked choke was damn impressive in that fight, and looked good on the Brazilian there. He's a capable striker. He had that big head kick knockout of Truck Gordon. Uses the kicks to control the distance. Likes to plug that front kick. And 2.13 strikes landed per minute. So not a big volume guy, but I think we could see that improve as we go. For Boetsch, he has significant fight-stopping power. He can stop a fight in an instance. He can stop a fight that he's been completely dominated in, and then, boom, wins. Brad Tavares and Yushin Okami are 2 perfect examples of that. He has a big right hand. He likes to use a front kick or a push kick down the middle, a straight left at distance. He will work that uppercut in the clinch, which he can knock guys out with. Does his best work damage, at least on the inside, or when he's at least slugging it out with opponents. He'll work a left to the body, overhand right, dropped Brad Tavares and put him down during an exchange. Boetsch can wrestle. It's hit or miss how good it's going to be. He was shooting from the outside against Brad, and Tavares had a lot of success shutting it down with his speed and timing, able to get out of the way. He was having a lot of trouble closing his distance in that fight. And I'm talking about that fight simply because I see some similarities between Tavares and Samman, what they present with Tim Boetsch. Look for, if they get in the clinch, look for some throws. But again, he had some trouble in that fight. He was getting out-muscled. He was dropped with a knee from Ed Herman in tight. And again, you wonder about his durability, how it's holding up, and if he's at close range, is he opening himself up to taking some big damage. For Samman, I think speed and movement will force Boetsch to follow him around the cage and make him struggle to close that gap. He's getting kind of pot-shotted throughout. Boetsch has power to finish a fight and could catch Samman coming in, or maybe in a dirty box scenario where he really hurts him and cracks him. But I think Samman just has way too many tools. The physical attributes favor him, as the momentum favors him. I think he wears Tim out with his pace, eventually gets on top and breaks him down with strikes. And my prediction is Josh Samman to defeat Tim Boetsch by TKO. And what could have been if this remained the main event of the evening is the number 3 ranked lightweight on the planet, Tony El Cucuy Ferguson, 21 wins and 3 losses, takes on injury replacement and debuting Lando Groovy Vannata, undefeated at 8-0. Now, this was originally as I said, pegged as the main event. Michael Chiesa pulled out. Vannata is stepping in just over 2 weeks to prepare. Vannata's coming in and off a win over one-and-done World Series of Fighting veteran Remco Blackman in April. He's a Jackson Wink product, so he's coming from a very solid camp, so he will be prepared for this fight. Now, Ferguson has been working his way through an escalation of opposition. You go back to multiple wins before this, but Abel Trujillo to Gleison Tebow to Josh Thompson to finishing Edson Barboza. You can see where we are progressing. This is obviously a diversion in that steps as far as competition with Vannata stepping in, but Chiesa probably would have given him a big title eliminator fight, if not a title shot, which a lot of people were clamoring for. He obviously at one point was pegged to take on Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's on a 7-fight winning streak, has finished 5 during that span. This is a very tough fight for Ferg. A loss here, and everything he has accomplished is pretty much undone. Obviously, the UFC is not going to be super hard on him because, he took a fight that he didn't have to take, but nonetheless, this is a fight he cannot afford to lose. He is 2 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage. Vannata is the younger man by 8 years. Ferguson, keep this in mind, Ferguson has 11 UFC fights on his record. Vannata has 8 pro bouts, period. So certainly a experience disparity in this fight. For Tony, 9 wins by knockout in his career, 7-1 in fights ended by submission, 4-2 in the scorecards. He has won 4 of his last 5 fights to go the distance, though. So certainly, a capable guy to win fights on the scorecards. Vannata is undefeated, 3 wins by knockout, 4 submission wins, 1 decision. One that did go the distance, it was a split decision. He has 6 first-round finishes, including 3 in a row coming into this fight. But now, Vannata has taken a step up in competition over his last couple of matchups, has faced, though, a lot of regional fighters, lower-level competition. Ferguson, not surprising, I'm not saying anything out of the ordinary here, leaps and bounds above anybody he has faced to date. Still a huge opportunity for him. Now, Tony is an incredibly unorthodox fighter, throws caution to the wind, dives on submissions, comes forward recklessly. It's basically a situation where you hit me, I'm going to hit you, but I'm going to hit you more often and harder, and eventually you are going to go down. Really pushes fighters, has an endless gas tank, which allows him to employ that strategy. That fight with Edson Barboza was just pure violence, and I was just waiting for someone to go down. And I had Tony in that fight by submission, and I was, it's hard to watch a fighter take that much damage when you're banking on him, but nonetheless, that's Tony's style. He loves to break guys down, and that panic wrestling, a guy will shoot on him, he loves to sprawl it out and boom, lock up that dart stroke with those long arms, or if he can get him in any position where he breaks them down and can get on top, look for that submission opportunity to pop up. Throws very long strikes, as I said, excellent chin, throws hard, whatever he's throwing, chopping leg kicks, long, that jab, anything he throws, the right cross, everything is hard. Again, breaks fighters with the pace and impact of his offense. Has given up takedowns, and that's what almost cost him in the Danny Castillo fight, was he was willing to give up takedowns. He's active off his back, but it's a position you do not want to be in. He will attack submissions, uses them to get on top. Again, very dangerous, but again, you don't want to give up positional control for a finish because it could eventually cost you in a fight. Vannata, though, he comes from a grappling background, but prefers to strike. He has a solid right hand. He dropped Chad Curry and hurt Blackman with in both their fights. Good movement overall, decent body and head kicks. Throws very hard, won't shy away from engaging, which will probably be something Tony really looks forward to. He used a decent whizzer in one of his fights I saw where a fighter attempted to take him down. He could look for takedowns to try and mix things up against Ferguson in this fight. And I said for Tony, it's a high-risk, low-reward matchup. He can't afford a misstep here, but the short notice, the huge step up in competition for Lando Vannata is just simply not a good equation. I think Ferguson breaks him with his pace, his unorthodox attacks. It's just too much for a debuting fighter. And my prediction is Tony Ferguson to defeat Lando Vannata by submission. And as much as we lost it on an awesome main event, the new main event is going to be fantastic as well. It's a 5-rounder. I confirmed with both fighters on Twitter it's going to be a 5-rounder. It's in the UFC's bantamweight divisions. The 5th-ranked former title challenger, Michael Mayday McDonald, 17 wins and 3 losses, takes on the 8th-ranked John Hands of Stone Lineker, 27 wins and 7 losses of Brazil, formerly competing at flyweight, now making a home for himself at bantamweight. Now, this is a title eliminator bout. McDonald's already fought for the belt, but he was exceptionally young, and he was 21 or 2 when he fought for the title, so 26. He's old now, by comparison, not at all. He is working his way back into title contention. He's on the cusp. Lineker has won 4 in a row. His only loss over his last 9 was against Ali Bogatinov, which basically cost him a shot at the title. And, it's a shame he can't compete at flyweight, because that would set up a great title fight between him and Demetrius Johnson. I don't know how well their styles play out. I think DJ likes, his style is very effective against a fighter like Lineker. But nonetheless, it would still be an interesting matchup. For Mayday, he was coming off a long layoff, 25 months since heading into his last matchup. He ultimately won that fight. He's 2-2 over his last 4. He did win his first 4 UFC fights before getting the title fight loss to Renan Barão. He's 2 losses during this current 4-fight stretch against Barão and Uriah Faber, so 2 top-level guys. Physically, McDonald 6 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage. He is 1 year younger as well. Now for Hands of Stone, 12 wins by knockout, 3-4 in fights ended by submission, 10-4 in the scorecards. For McDonald, 9 wins by knockout, 6-2 in fights ended by submission. Both, as I said, the aforementioned losses to Faber and Barão. He is 2-0 in the scorecards. For Lineker, the guy has face-melting power. An awesome chin as well. Francisco Rivera, when they threw down, he didn't knock Rivera out. He hurt him badly and eventually submitted him, but it was only a matter of time. Rivera hit him with some absolute bombs, and Lineker didn't blink, just kept swinging. And that's impressive. His striking volume, 5.57 strikes landed per minute, 3.93. When you hit as hard as this guy does, and your chin is as good as Lineker's is, it's very difficult not to like how those numbers flesh out. And he is far more technical than a lot of people give him credit for, and we're seeing that more and more in his approach. He throws a lot of wide hooks, which a lot of people don't like, but they are so effective. He will hammer leg kicks, rip shots to the body. It really slows down the movement of his opponent, takes away their gas tank, and sets up his head shots. He has a big overhand right. He will whip in a leaping left hook as well. He'll throw a counter right hook to the body, covers distance exceptionally well. Look for him to fake takedowns and fire shots when his opponent kind of drops his hands to protect and opens up an opportunity to go upstairs. He's become much more patient as a fighter to figure out the range early on. He does a very good job taking the center of the cage, cutting off his opponent, and forcing him to put their back on the wall. And once he gets them narrowed in against the cage, like we saw against Rob Font, that's when he lets his hands go and starts to crack them. 1, 2, 3 to the body, and then goes upstairs. You know, against Font, he pushed forward. He's able to take him down a couple times, can generate a lot of power from upstairs. Now, Font had some success landing a couple of strikes, you know, using his reach, circling away, jabbing. He just didn't do enough of it, and that's because Lineker was getting on the inside. We also saw Ian McCall remain very technical, used his speed, used his footwork, and had success in that fight as well. Now, with Mayday McDonald, he has very quick hands. He has power in both hands. He will exchange. He has a very good right hand, very nice uppercut as well, solid kicking repertoire to fall back on. When he fought Brad Pickett, who he submitted, Pickett was closing the distance, and McDonald was, you know, getting the better of the exchange, but Pickett was still getting on the inside and backing up Mayday in that fight. And we saw some wild exchange where guys were just whipping strikes, and they were falling all over the place trying to land that big shot. And that's fun, but not exactly the most career-prolonging approach to fighting. We saw McDonald slow down in that scenario, so you wonder about his cardio a little bit. The early flurry with Pickett took a lot out of him. He eventually submitted him in that fight. He needs to avoid head hunting. Seems a little when he fought Faber, he seemed a little hesitant with the power of Faber. But when you have power like McDonald and like Lineker, you have to set things up. You can't just go out there looking for that one punch opportunity to land and knock a guy out. Faber was outworking him, beating him to the shot, landing some big punches. He was closing in and landing some strikes, a lot of single strikes, but still putting punches on McDonald's chin and hurting him. Faber landed a huge right hand that hurt him, rocked him a couple times later on, and eventually finished him in that fight. When you look at this, Lineker has massive power. And you know, he landed 80 strikes against Rob Font, and the way he backs opponents up, and McDonald, we've seen him give ground a couple times in fights, and the confidence that Lineker has in his chin to go in and wade forward and attack, that's a tough scenario to overcome. I haven't seen enough of a jab out of McDonald to consistently back his opponent up, and that absolutely is concerning. The other thing we look at here is, you know, the headhunting style of, you know, that is going to work for Lineker, that McDonald employs, it's going to work for Lineker, it's going to draw him into exchanges, and that's not a good scenario you want to be part of. Look for Lineker to get him into those exchanges, land big shots. Lineker is very quick at 135. He seems better conditioned without having to make the cut. His power still translates exceptionally well. We also saw McDonald have a lot of trouble with the grappling of Kanehara before he got the submission, and that's a backup plan for Lineker. If he can get on top and land some ground and pound and look for a submission. McDonald has to push Lineker early, but he doesn't carry that type of pace that's going to exhaust him. I think Lineker pushes forward, attacks the body, attacks the legs, draws him into a slugfest, and eventually lands something huge like that left hook or a big right. And my prediction is John Lineker to defeat Mayday McDonald by knockout. So those are my 6 main card predictions, or at least perceived main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 91. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I hope to have them up and completed by Monday. The game plan is to get the prediction, the bet pack done by Tuesday, at the very latest Wednesday morning, but it'll be done in plenty of time before the main card goes down. We get a couple of days off, and then we prepare for, is it the Fox event? I think it is the Fox event, and then we get UFC 201 to end July. So six events in July. 6 events in July. We've been fairly busy, to say the least. Thank you, as always, for contacting me on Facebook and chatting it up. I'm always there if you want to send a message, ask a question. People have emailed me with advice or just suggestions, or things that they would like my insight on it I didn't touch on. I'm absolutely up for that. Make sure you check in. I will be doing a UFC Fight Week post recap ensemble, if you will, for everything. And it's late here. I'm exhausted and feeling like garbage. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you after the bell. Take care.